Well, Barack Obama's former staff defending their old boss after President Trump's wiretapping allegations. One of them, former Obama speechwriter Ben Rhodes, trolling President Trump yesterday, tweeting, "No president can order a wiretap. Those restrictions were put in place to protect citizens from people like you."
Ouch. So who is Ben Rhodes and what is his stake in all of this? Joining us now with those answers, Executive Vice President at the Center for Security Policy, Jim Hansen. Good morning, Jim. Obviously, Ben Rhodes deeply invested in the Iran nuclear deal, as we were talking about a few moments ago, which President Trump has said he's going to unravel.
And he's actually one of the serial fabulists who helped lie to the American public, and a know-nothing foreign policy person who led the D.C. journalist crowd down the garden path into helping them and Obama and he lie about the Iran deal and get it into effect.
You're referring to a New York Times Magazine profile of him a couple of years ago where Ben Rhodes openly admitted that he was essentially tricking reporters into believing this deal was going to be really tough on Iran. Didn't he say that?
He said it. It wasn't true. There's nothing about the Iran deal, essentially, that has even an element of truth. You know, you've got a guy who was a wannabe fiction writer who found his ideal role as the script writer for Obama's delusional foreign policy fantasies. This guy should have never gotten anywhere near our national security, and it's a disgrace that he and Obama used their mind meld to turn most of the world into wreckage.
And so what do you anticipate his role to be now, today, post-presidency? What's Ben Rhodes going to try to do?
Well, he is obviously part of the resistance. You know, he's one of the people right now who is helping organize the other side, the Obama loyalists, and the people who are part of the anti-Trump movement in trying to obstruct President Trump from running his agenda. You know, it's obvious his role right here is trying to pretend, oh, the president didn't order a wiretap. Well, does anybody on earth with an above room temperature IQ believe he didn't know about it and approve it? Of course he did. Rhodes is part of the team trying to stop Trump from governing, and I think it's going to be painful for him and the rest to see what happens when an investigation comes down. I've heard from inside the administration there may be people going to jail.
For what? For leaks? Leaking classified information, or?
To start with, for sure, leaking classified information. And there are other things. You know, the entire resistance movement seems to have been planned. And the more they look into this, the more they think there are actual things that may have broken the law by a number of people. So we'll find out.
Concerted attempts potentially before the election and then during the transition to disseminate and declassify certain information that certainly wouldn't be above board.
You know, and they changed the rules. One of the last things Obama did was to soften the rules for what the NSA can release regarding intercepted communications. I wonder why.
Yeah, Jim Hansen, this story is still playing out. We appreciate your insights this morning.
Thanks a lot.
If the Obama administration did wiretap Trump Tower, they needed an order from the FISA court to do it, as you just heard. What would the president know about that wiretap? Would he know anything at all? A former DOJ official, J. Christian Adams, knows all about that process. He takes us inside that process.
Reaction pouring into President Trump's bombshell allegations against the man who preceded him. He, quote, just found out that Mr. Obama had ordered wiretaps of Trump Tower.
They did spend time listening to conversations between then Senator Jeff Sessions and the ambassador to Russia. What other conversations did they listen in on?
Spokesman for the former president saying the Obama White House never ordered surveillance, they say, on any U.S. citizen.
Bottom line is you still have an administration using investigative tools to go after a political opponent, and that's a very scary business.
Supporters of President Trump holding rallies across the country. Today's events are called March for Trump.
This is about America first, and I support this president and all the things that he's doing, and that's why I'm here today.
There was at least a couple dozen of these anti-Trump protests. Their goal was to shut down any support for President Trump. In Berkeley, California, protesters went up to the group and started arguing, which led to shoving and fist flying.
It's such a great country, and I think a lot of people don't look at that. We are so blessed in so many ways by what we have, and I think Trump is really there to help us get even better again.
So sweet. Ed, good to have you back this morning.
Great to be here.
And
so much going on.
We didn't kick you out yet.
So much happening.
So much happening. I mean, the news really broke on our show yesterday, if you were tuning in. As we said, we had a whole show planned. ripped it all up because President Trump tweeted, and now the conversation has completely changed.
It has. No, the conversation yesterday, if you follow the news throughout the day yesterday, a lot of conversation, speculation, trying to get underneath, okay, these 4 tweets in the morning, wiretaps at Trump Tower.
Right.
What does it all mean? Where did it all come from? Was it done legally, illegally? Where are the sources? Where's the evidence? Just a ton of conversations. And I think even this morning, a lot of questions, but also I think we're getting a few more answers even in the first hour.
Well, started with dramatic allegations, as you say yesterday, of the president, the current president, accusing the previous president of basically ordering wiretaps of Trump Tower. The former president putting out this statement yesterday that left a lot of wiggle room, insisting that he never ordered the wiretapping. However, maybe someone else in his administration did. We're still trying to confirm all of that. And then last night, here on Fox, you had Corey Lewandowski, the first campaign manager for Donald Trump, doubling down on all of this and saying it wasn't just Trump Tower. The U.S. Senate may have been bugged as well. Watch this.
What we've seen from the previous administration is that they did spend time listening to conversations between then Senator Jeff Sessions and the ambassador to Russia while he was in his U.S. Senate office. If that were to take place, which supposedly did take place, what other conversations did they listen in on from the American public?
That they were listening to conversations between then Senator Sessions and the Russian ambassador Kislyak? Or are you talking about Mike Flynn and Kislyak?
No, I'm talking about Jeff Sessions. So, this previous administration has said that they were aware of the conversation on 2 different occasions where then Senator Jeff Sessions met with the ambassador, one time during the Republican National Convention, but more importantly, the second time that he met with was in the United States Senate office in a federal building, and they were monitoring what a United States senator was having a private conversation with, is what I understand. And if that is the case, that's very concerning.
It's powerful information. It would be very concerning if the FISA court order that was issued in October, which is what's coming out, that there was one attempted in June but denied, and then a FISA court order granted in October, if that was used to surveil broader than, say, what they initially asked for, or in certain places that they didn't want. We don't know that. We don't know if that's the case. But what Corey Lewandowski is suggesting is that there was a concerted effort to take some of that information or utilize some of it in certain places, not just to identify if there are foreign threats or foreign surveillance, but to disseminate information about Trump and his associates and others. And you look at all the leaks that have come out, first against General Flynn, very specific, now with Jeff Sessions. Where's this information coming from?
Yeah, that's the big question. Where are these leaks coming from? And if they're, it almost makes you think that there has to have been some sort of a wiretapping for the intelligence, people coming out of the intelligence leaking this stuff, right? That's where you really are trying to figure out, where did this begin? What is the problem here, and how do we get
Well, and there was a
solution?
January 19th New York Times story, January 19th being important. It was the day before Donald Trump's inauguration, reporting that the outgoing Obama administration had wiretapped information that played into the whole Russia investigation. Didn't get specific.
But it
about
opened it up, though, to the intelligence community so that they could all have access to what that information told them. And that's what makes you believe that it comes from these leaks, that maybe these leaks come from the wiretapping, right? What he was so good at doing yesterday, though, whether or not he ends up having proof, that is all yet to be known, and we don't have all those facts yet. But changing the narrative, changing the way we talk about the story, right? Because before this, they were very much on the defense. And President Trump is saying, hey, if you're going to accuse me of colluding with the Russians, let me tell you, they're not the good guys either. They're also tapping into Trump Tower. They're also trying to find our personal conversation.
And I think a big part of their frustration is, okay, why does the failing New York Times and Washington Post, why do they get to write stories that we have to respect with no sourcing and no evidence and anonymous this and outrageous headlines, but the President of the United States, who has access to an FBI director, an NSA, all of those things, and here's some of the headlines from the media saying, no evidence, baseless wiretaps, citing no evidence. Trump's got no evidence. He's the commander-in-chief with access to intelligence. Listen, the onus will be on him and others to carefully show where this is coming from, and I think there's a lot more. There likely is a lot.
But when you say the Washington Post doesn't have sources, they had a story a few days ago about Jeff Sessions.
It's all anonymous, and it's
that
all
he had to
leaked
acknowledge,
out.
oh, I did actually have another meeting.
And then where did those leaks come from? And
and those questions are there, but it doesn't mean the story wasn't
Flynn,
true.
though.
No, some of these things.
It was so true that Jeff Sessions had to recuse himself.
But it's the fact of the matter is, there's been plenty of other articles where there's absolutely no evidence in anonymous sourcing, and they, in the 7th paragraph, have to say, turns out there actually is no collusion between the Russians.
And to Abby's point about Donald Trump being on defense, going on offense yesterday, then it was former President Obama who suddenly was on defense. His camp put out this statement, quote, "A cardinal rule of the Obama administration was that no White House official ever interfered with any independent investigation led by the Department of Justice. As part of that practice, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Any suggestion otherwise is simply false." A couple things. One there, that last part, they never ordered surveillance of a U.S. citizen. James Rosen is a U.S. citizen. He's going to be on the show later. There were surveillance of him earlier in the Obama administration. Are they just trying to be cute and say, the president, yes, there was surveillance, but the president never ordered it? That doesn't mean the surveillance didn't happen with James Rosen.
That's exactly,
doesn't mean it didn't happen at Trump Tower.
That's exactly what John Favreau, the former speechwriter for President Obama, this is what he tweeted yesterday as all of this was breaking. He said, "I'd be careful about reporting that Obama said there was no wiretapping. Statement just said that neither he nor the White House ordered it." That's big.
This is not a Trump supporter. This is someone who worked for President Obama. You can drive a truck through the caveats in that tweet as well as the other one. You just can. I mean, you're hedging and hemming and using words properly.
Like
there's no denials in there.
Ford
That's the biggest.
150 or what kind of?
No, I'm thinking like a big rig.
Big rig,
like
yeah.
a big rig or a Humvee. You can go straight through it. Because listen, that's not a denial. That is, in fact, that's in part evidence. And if I'm President Trump right now, I'm saying they're not denying that. They're merely saying, well, technically, this person, that person. And we had Ed Klein on earlier, who's well-sourced in Washington, D.C., and he gave us a little bit of additional insight about maybe some infighting between agencies and what that may tell us about what President Trump knows and how he knows it. Take a listen.
According to my sources, Comey, the director of the FBI, and Trump have, in fact, had conversations about this. And so where Trump is getting this, I believe, is directly from James Comey, that you've been tapped, this is probably not legal, and that's what set off Donald Trump. The FBI is now looking into whether the NSA did something illegal. And if so, you're going to have not only a war between the intelligence community and the administration, but within the intelligence community with the FBI going after the NSA.
So you're saying there's an yeah, and that comports with reporting we've heard that it was the behind-the-scenes FBI director and others who came to the White House to Reince Priebus and others and said, hey, these reporting on the Russian collusion is BS. And Reince said, help us disseminate that, help us let people know, because that's the truth. So maybe it is the FBI that's trying to be the fair arbiter here and sees other arms of government overreaching.
And when he mentions the NSA, one of our viewers tweeted us a story from 2015 in the Wall Street Journal where the NSA and other intelligence agencies were listening in on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other Israeli officials. And you know what happened? Some of his calls and their calls with members of Congress here got swept up in that. And the Obama administration was in the middle of that surveillance. That's a tantalizing twist there as well. Because that would be another example where maybe it starts with Russia and all of a sudden it's in Trump Tower. It starts with Israel and it's on Capitol Hill. And remember what Corey Lewandowski said about the surveillance might have been going on in the U.S. Senate. That would be a big problem.
Right, and it also adds to the debate that we've already been having in this country about FISA and the use of those courts and how much power they have in terms of where do you draw the line with our privacy, you know? And I think that's going to continue on with Congress because they've gone back and forth in recent years. I am curious on your thoughts, Ed, on why we haven't heard yet from the White House on the tweets yesterday morning that they have not backed it up with proof yet. That is not saying that they're not going to.
Well, I think as Pete's saying, the White House may have the view, the current White House, not the former one, that, you know, why do they have to show the proof? They know something, or at least the president claims he knows something. On the other hand, you know, Intercept has a story out today saying, look, the president has the power to declassify anything. So if, in fact, President Obama ordered this or someone in his administration took this to the court, that could be declassified. And all of this could be resolved pretty quickly because then the president of the United States, the current president, could declassify some of this, go to Congress, go to whatever, the FBI, and say, I want the American people to see this evidence.
I think that's very true. But when you get into surveillance of foreign interference potentially, but catching, you know, congressmen or senators, or in this case, a presidential candidate, what's revealed and what isn't revealed is a pretty tricky science. So,
and this continues on. We've got some great guests coming up on the show.
James Rosen, who himself is someone who's dealt with this, but also famed conservative radio talk show host Mark Levin, who is many people credit with starting this. It was in research and other sources that he's had that in part triggered a Breitbart story that in part really revealed what may be going on. So he's going to be on later on in the show as well.
Good stuff.
Good one. All right, to some other headlines this morning. President Trump expected to sign a revised executive travel order this week. The new order restricting travel from 7 Middle Eastern and African countries could come as early as tomorrow. The president's original order has been held up in federal court since it was signed in late January. The executive action is aimed at preventing radical Islamic terrorists from reaching our soil. Also this morning, people across the nation showing their support for our commander-in-chief. March for Trump rallies. They were held in over 40 states, but counter-protesters also showed up as well, attempting to shut down any support for the president. Things did get ugly in Berkeley, California. Fists flying between President Trump supporters and protesters. Police arresting nearly a dozen people. The brawls leaving 7 people injured. And a president, a painter, and now a yoga rebel. Former First Lady Laura Bush telling People magazine that her husband, President George W. Bush, was once kicked out of yoga class. She says he and his friends would show up late and join the back row while on vacation in Florida. Quote, Donnie, George, and Charlie, our other friend, one time they had to be asked to leave because they were behaving badly. I love this. It's unclear what specifically he did to get kicked out.
You could see him goofing around.
Totally.
Wow.
My husband did the same thing.
If the Obama administration did wiretap Trump Tower, they needed a FISA court order to do it. What would the president know about that wiretap? Would he know anything at all? A former DOJ official, J. Christian Adams, knows all about that process. He takes us inside the process live next.
Plus, how do President...
A spokesman for former President Obama now calling allegations of wiretapping Trump Tower ahead of the election, quote, simply false. But if it is true, how would the former administration do it? That's where the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Court comes in. And here to tell us more about it is former DOJ official J. Christian Adams. Good morning. Let's start with the basics, and then we'll get to the specifics of this case, what we know and what we don't know. For viewers who don't really understand FISA, without getting into all the weeds, this is a serious process where you have to go to a court in order to get an order to actually open the door to surveillance.
It's a special federal court, Ed, appointed by the Chief Justice of the United States. It actually sits a couple blocks from where I am, and they review applications to monitor what are potentially foreign agents, foreign influences, foreign powers communicating or operating within the United States. It's an application by the FBI. They have to show there's probable cause that there is a foreign power engaging in some sort of activities within the United States.
So if you were to get a court order and say, come up with an allegation that in this case Russia was trying to hack the election, I'm not saying they did, but that was the charge over a year ago when it all started, and you want to listen in and surveil foreign agents, where is the line when those foreign agents start talking to Americans like General Flynn?
Well, look, the Attorney General of the United States has to certify FISA applications. They're done by the FBI. So you're going to have Loretta Lynch, you're going to have James Comey, more than likely James Comey, with intimate knowledge about this in the fall. So there are documents, there are people who know, there are answers which we can obtain if the right questions are asked. But Ed, that's why knocking Sessions out of the game was such a victory for the swamp. The people who know and who can do something about this and are willing to take on the administrative state that's responsible, namely Mr. Sessions, are no longer in the game.
Right. I think you put your finger on the point, which is that was what President Trump in large part was upset about, is that he's now recused himself, Jeff Sessions. And since there's no Deputy Attorney General confirmed there, there's some murkiness about who is actually going to be in charge of all of this investigating. You can comment on that, but then also I want to get to this key point, which is you open the door that Loretta Lynch, President Obama's Attorney General, would have likely have known about such a court order of surveillance of Trump Tower. Would this have reached the Oval Office? Even if they say in their statement, President Obama did not order it, something of this magnitude, would it have crossed his desk so he knew about it in the Oval Office?
Well, it's hard to imagine he wouldn't. Look, a judge would have ordered it. A judge always orders a FISA warrant. So, of course, the president didn't order it. But look, Ed, this is what's important about Sessions' recusal is that it prevents him from getting to the bottom of it and replaces him with career swamp bureaucrats because they don't have their team in place yet. I laughed when I heard General Sessions talk about an ethics officer advised him to recuse himself. I know those ethics opinions are often skewed.
I think incredible insights today from J. Christian Adams, too, that while President Obama may not have ordered it, he probably was aware of it, and so they were not getting at that truth in their statement yesterday, number one. And number two, Jeff Sessions recusing himself is key to all of this, because now what happens with this investigation is going to get very interesting. J. Christian Adams, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
How do President Trump supporters feel about the wiretap claims? Pete went to the street, Trump Tower to be specific, to find out. Plus, it's the VP versus AP. Vice President Mike Pence hopping.
We are back with some quick headlines. Another Jewish cemetery unfortunately desecrated. A New York State assemblyman tweeting out these pictures of 5 toppled tombstones and police activity at a cemetery in Brooklyn. It's the latest wave of incidents like it across the country, including St. Louis, where 170 tombstones were toppled 2 weeks ago. No good. And a wannabe jihadi now facing terrorism charges for trying to travel to the Middle East in an attempt to join ISIS. Federal investigators say Elvis Redjik of I butchered that, but don't care. New York told them he was ready to strap a bomb and sacrifice himself for jihad after getting busted for pot. He's now being held without bail.
Actually, back you up on that. Do we have to get the name right?
Not
is it, jihadi?
Not for a jihadi.
I actually agree with you on that, Pete.
In just a few hours, NASCAR's most patriotic race is set to begin.
Yeah, it's the second race in the Monster Energy Cup Series. It's the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, and fans are gearing up right now at the Atlanta Speedway.
And also gearing up is our good friend and Folds of Honor founder, Major Dan Rooney. He joins us live from Victory Lane. Major, good morning. Congratulations on this awesome race. Tell us more about it.
Hey, you guys, I feel the need for speed today. We are at the most patriotic place in America. There are Trump flags flying all over, fires of patriotism burning. Just an amazing day. My brothers and my squadron are doing an F-22 flyby, plenty of Budweiser being served, and this is just everything that is right in America today on a Sunday afternoon. Traditional core values alive and well here in Atlanta.
I love this charity because it highlights some of the most important people in this country, the family members of our brave men and women who serve. And I love this stat. Since 2007, Folds of Honor has provided more than 10,000 scholarships in all 50 states. It's raised nearly $70 million. Incredible the work you guys are doing. Tell us, though, about Lap 13 and what everyone's going to do there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this, Abby, but there are actually 13 folds that bring the flag to its triangled shape. And during the 13th lap today, all the fans will have folded flags that they'll hold up on cards. And it's just it's a beautiful education moment for all of us that freedom isn't free. And this race's purpose is to raise funds and awareness for what's now about 1.5 million dependents who've had someone either killed or disabled defending our freedoms. 9 out of 10 get no federal education assistance. And that is the beauty of Quick Trip and Coca-Cola stepping up to sponsor this race in front of millions of patriots across this country. We'll raise hundreds of thousands of dollars today to fuel the dreams, literally, of spouses and children across this country.
Major Dan, real quick, you and I have been talking off the air about my book, 42 Faith, coming out April 4th. We're going to donate some proceeds to Folds of Honor because it's a book about Jackie Robinson. He served in the American military. Real quick, when Abby was talking about the $70 million that goes to these families, what do you do with this money?
Yeah, we provide scholarships to spouses and children who've had someone either killed or disabled defending our freedoms. And nearly 90 cents of every dollar goes directly to fund scholarship programs. So it is high speed, low drag, Ed, and we cannot wait for your book on Jackie Robinson to come out so we can fulfill some more scholarships.
We're looking forward to help. Thanks for being here today, Major.
Speaking of high speed, low drag, it's going to be a great race today.
I know. All right, so the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 airs on Fox today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And for more info on how to donate, as we said, this is an incredible charity. You got to head to foldsofhonor.org.
And he said American flags, Budweiser on a Sunday afternoon. What's better than that?
That is just Americana, is it not?
Not too bad.
All right, coming up, have you seen this controversial billboard? Pete is waiting for this one. It says, real men provide, real women appreciate it. Well, it's just been replaced, and you're not going to believe with what?
I got to see it.
Plus, a big show still ahead. You can't step away. Chris Wallace, Stuart Varney, and an exclusive with conservative radio talk show host Mark Levin. You will not want to miss this. The great one, Mark Levin.
That's right. And how do President Trump supporters feel about the wiretap claims? We went to the place that is supposedly wiretapped, Trump Tower, to find out.
to take down any president of the United States is a horrible thing to do, because why wouldn't you want the president to be successful? Why wouldn't you want America to be successful?
Across the country in support of the president. One occurred right at Trump Tower, and since that was the building that, he says was wiretapped by the Obama administration, we went over and asked some of his supporters and others just walking by what they thought about recent developments. Here's what they said.
Why are you all out here?
I felt motivated to come here to support the president.
We are the modern patriots. What do you make of all the leaks that are coming out?
I think it's actually, an organized attempt to try to undermine our president.
I think to take down any president of the United States is a horrible thing to do, because why wouldn't you want the president to be successful? Why wouldn't you want America to be successful?
Can I ask you a question? Are you a Russian agent?
No.
When did the Democrats go all Dr. Strangelove? You go back a generation, they used to criticize the Republicans for not getting along with the Russians. Now that we're being diplomatic, now we're traitors.
That's exactly what Trump is saying right now. Well, if you're going to insinuate that we're in the bed with Russia, we're going to do the very same to you. Guess what? We can both play this game, and it is a game, and it's really undermining the progress that our country could make. It's disgusting, and we're the ones who suffer.
Who was it that said, tell Vladimir that after the election I'll have more flexibility?
Who else? Obama.
Who was it that issued the reset button in a new relationship with Russia?
Hillary. and they all have connections. They're all hypocrites. That's the problem. They're all hypocrites. They say what the enemy they are, what they say the enemy is.
Are you a Russian agent?
No soy de Russia.
You saw the tweets this morning. What do you make of what President Trump is talking about as far as wiretaps at Trump Tower?
I'm not happy about it at all. Well, any of us could be wiretapped.
Does it worry you that potentially an Obama administration a month before an election would be authorizing, even if it was legal, wiretaps of Trump Tower? Does that...
Definitely not okay.
I think it's insane. I don't think the President of the United States can't do that without a court order.
So even if there was an order or a sense that maybe there was communication with somebody, does it concern you that in the middle of an election you would be listening in on the opposition candidate and potentially using
that's back to 1972. That's Watergate type of thing. But I'd like to see any kind of evidence.
Have you seen evidence yet that there is collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians?
I haven't seen anything directly, no.
There's been a lot of talk about potential collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians over the course of the election. Have you seen evidence that that's true also?
No, not at all. I mean, there's evidence that there's been contacts, but we don't know yet, at least the public doesn't, about the details of those contacts. So right now, you really can't make a real judgment upon collusion. I mean, that's a grand accusation.
A lot of accusations. I don't think there's a lot of evidence. That's the issue. A lot of accusations with no evidence.
That sounds a little pro-Trump. Are you a Russian agent?
Nietsky.
Are you a Russian agent?
Why not?
What a great way to end it.
There was a lot of smart people, passionate people out on the street, very well-informed people too, which is nice, very nice.
Really
to
passionate about this country, really wanting it the best for it at the end of the day.
And I did ask that question. I said, who is it that secretly said to the Russian president, tell Vladimir I'll have a little bit more flexibility?
Remember
after the
that
election.
moment?
Yeah, and President Trump remembers that moment as well. Who was it? I mean, that's an important point. It's not just a sort of a flippant point. There was a president of the United States that once was caught on a hot mic moment saying, tell Vladimir that after the election.
We've got sound of that. Let's play it.
This is my last election, please. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir.
I will have more flexibility, he said in 2012, after my re-election.
Flexibility for what?
To work with Vladimir.
So he thought his mic was off in that moment. So that was
they didn't realize it.
a real telling moment there, that exchange.
So that's why President Trump is saying, wait a second, he's being accused of being too close to Moscow. While he hasn't done anything yet as president to suggest that. Meanwhile, President Obama, right there on tape, was saying, I want to work with Vladimir. I'll have more flexibility to cut deals with him. And when Medvedev said, I'll transmit that message to Vladimir.
Where was the headline from the failing New York Times on the need for the investigation?
Sure
the anonymous sources screaming headlines about the conspiracy and the scandal between the Russians and the Obama administration. If you
there was
find
also a reset button, I think, too.
There was, and it was misspelled.
Yeah, and it was broken, apparently, because it wasn't reset.
But no, nothing to see here, people.
This story goes on. All right, just some other headlines this morning. President Trump, he suspends fast-track processing of controversial H-1B visa applications. the non-immigrant visa. It allows U.S. companies to hire foreigners in specialized fields. Critics say the program has been abused by outsourcing firms and is hurting American workers. Officials say the suspension will help reduce a backlog of long-pending visa petitions. It will take effect April 3rd and could last up to 6 months. And Vice President Pence demanding an apology from the Associated Press after it was published that his wife's private email, I guess it published her email account. Pence sharing this letter that he wrote to the AP, tweeting this: "When we requested they take it down, they refused. The AP owes my wife an apology." The AP then responding with, quote, "AP removed the email address from subsequent stories after learning Mrs. Pence still used the account. The AP still has yet to apologize to Mrs. Pence." Do you remember this billboard? The controversial "Real Men Provide, Real Women Appreciated." It was on a North Carolina interstate. It has now been replaced. The new billboard, it's a mouthful though, now saying "Much Ado About Nothing," a social experiment that brought forth those so immersed in their own insecurity that in the mirror they could only see an angry victim of their incorrect interpretation of a silly billboard. Bless their hearts. Well, the sign clearly mocking those who took offense to the original one. Wow. I wonder if you ever are driving slow enough to read that full sign. And history is made at the NFL, scouting combined. Washington wide receiver John Ross running the 40-yard dash in just 4.22 seconds. Wow, that is the fastest time among the nearly 4,000 players who have run that event since 2003. Running back Chris Johnson had been the record holder since 2008 when he posted a 4.24.
Wow.
Wow.
Ed once
amazing.
4.18.
What
This
happened,
is why
Ed?
Arnold's
What
worried.
happened?
This is why Arnold's worried.
Let's go out to Adam Klotz for some weather this morning. It is icy cold out there, Adam.
Yeah, icy cold is exactly right. Usually out here this morning, I'd have some friends with me. Not today. Way too cold for that. Frigid out here as temperatures have dropped down into the teens. Pretty good wind coming as well, and that makes it feel even colder. This is all limited up to the northeast. There's some warm spots around the country as well. Let's take a look at some of these maps and see what we're talking about. Look at these temperatures. 14 degrees right now in New York City with that wind. The feels like temperature down into single digits. We've got spots further inland. 0, -4 degrees in Ithaca. It is cold out here this morning. We're going to be continuing to battle some of this chilly weather. Here's what it looks like across the country. We've got some thunderstorms moving across the Gulf states and then a really big system out west. This one continues to drop heavy snow. We're going to be talking about as much as another 2 feet of snow before this one's over. And I want to show you really quickly. It's cold here, but there's spots where folks are really enjoying some warm weather. 55 degrees today in Chicago, 65 degrees in some spots in the middle of the country. But here, at least for a little while longer, I'm just going to be staying bundled up. It's chilly out here, guys.
Right, thank you, Adam. And we're going to be outside later in the show.
And you're going to want to bundle up,
basketball with
some hoops.
grannies.
Yes.
Which it's gone viral, and we're so excited to have them here.
We're trying to find somebody I could beat.
Yeah, if you can't beat them,
I know.
then there's no hope for Schwarzenegger.
Well, meanwhile, President Trump getting slammed by the left for using Twitter to accuse President Obama of wiretapping. Is that fair criticism? Carl Higbie and Linda Tran here to debate. Fair and Balanced next.
And who wants?
And now some news by the numbers. 27. That's how many planes the FAA is saying breached the restricted airspace over President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in February. In one instance, fighter jets causing a sonic boom, racing to intercept a plane. The FAA is investigating each one of those incidents. And $50 million. That's how much the Mexican government is now forking over to pay for legal assistance to illegal immigrants in the U.S. who fear deportation. And finally, $1 billion. That's how much the IRS says it has in unclaimed tax refunds from 2013. The clock is ticking. You must send in your return by April 18th, Abby, to get your money back.
All right, thank you, Ed. Well, a spokesman for former President Obama denying accusations that his administration ordered wiretaps on Trump Tower leading up to the election. These allegations coming in a series of tweets from President Trump. But now our commander-in-chief is facing criticism for the way that he delivered this message. So is this fair? Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, former U.S. Navy SEAL Carl Higbie and Democratic strategist Linda Tran. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Abby.
Carl, I'll start with you. So we just played a few minutes ago that clip with President Obama talking to Medvedev in that hot mic moment where he said, "This is my last election. I will be a lot more flexible after this." And you have people saying, you know, some people in the media are covering up for President Obama, and President Trump is not getting that same fair treatment this go around. What do you say?
Oh, sure. And this is a pattern. The media always covers up for President Obama. And then when Donald Trump does one thing, they jump all over it. And the funny thing here is that he uses his Twitter as his method to reach the American people. I mean, he's got 26 million followers. And so I say, President Trump, tweet on, baby, tweet on.
All right. What do you say, Linda?
You know, Abby, I think there's actually a ton to unpack here. You know, the reality is a president does not order a wiretap. It would be illegal to do so. I mean, there's a reason why there is the Foreign Surveillance and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and it has a number of federal judges on it who are elected 7-year terms, and they are the ones who approve whether or not there's a wiretap. The larger issue here is that yet again you have President Trump making some allegations without a lot of evidence, and that should be troubling for the American people.
Linda, what is it that Democrats are trying to get to at the end of this? What are they trying to accuse President Trump and his team of when it comes to the Russians? Because it seems like everyone's confused about this whole thing and what their intent is at the end of all of this.
Well, I think Democrats, including Representative Schiff, who's helping to sort of lead this charge, have said that they don't really know what's behind all of this. They don't really know what the connections are between President Trump, his team, and Russia. And that's the whole point, that there ought to be an independent investigation. There ought to be an independent prosecutor looking into it.
Yeah, but at this point, as you know, Carl, we don't have any evidence of that. And President Trump tweeting yesterday morning, it broke here on our show, it was a sign that he's saying, hey, I'm going to have to go directly to the American people because the mainstream media is not telling the story that the way that I would like it to be told. Yeah. So I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to handle it my way.
Right, and the Democrats today are screaming, oh, it's so unfair that President Trump could just make these allegations. They've been making allegations since day one. And the crazy thing is actually the liberal media believes the crap that they're spewing. So I think that this is going to be one thing where President Obama is going to come out and say, well, you know, we have no evidence of this. Then there's going to be evidence of it, and then they're going to justify it, and then it's just going to be a downhill effect, and then the media is going to cover up for it, and they're going to try to make it go away and then make some other accusation against Trump. That's how it always happens.
Linda, is that how it's going to play out? Is the media going to cover up for it?
Well, look, to be clear, there's plenty of evidence that there have been interactions between Donald Trump's team and members of the Russian government. And the point is, there ought to be a lot more airing and sunshine around it to see if there is a conflict of interest, if there have been problems. What we do know, what the facts do show, is that Russia intervened in the election, that Russia has an interest in working with Donald Trump and his team, and frankly backed his team in this past election. And so the question is, what else is there behind the curtain, and what else should the American people know?
A lot of questions. I think what the American people want is just fair coverage of all of this and some fair investigations. We're going to have to leave it there this morning, though. Carl and Linda, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, and we've got a big lineup still ahead this morning. Stuart Varney, Congressman Tim Ryan, Florida Governor Rick Scott, and radio talk show host Mark Levin. They are all here. Video on Facebook, and now it has gone viral with more than 17 million views.
And here to show us how it's done, 12-year-old Michael, 10-year-old Nikki, and their dad, Carmine Testa, owner of Carmine's Pizza Factory in Jersey City. Michael, you told me it's a little bit like shooting a basketball. So you get your palm in the middle of it.
You want your palm in the middle of the dough, and it's like you're shooting a basketball.
Ooh. I almost hit Abby in the head.
That's all right.
Okay.
But see, we got to play hoops later, so this is practice.
This is good. Wait, how long have you guys been spinning here?
Yeah.
I've been spinning for about like 5 years.
5 years? How about you?
Me too.
All right, so you're 12, you're 10. Which one's the boss?
Me.
Is that true?
You're the boss?
Wait.
I think the boss is the dad behind you, right? The mastermind.
The boss is at home with my daughter right now, okay? Don't get me in trouble.
So
Boss is at home.
how did this all start? Because we see this video, 17 million views. Where did it begin?
So about 5 years ago, my daughter Chloe, who's home right now, she was born, and she was a little colicky. She was a handful. So on Saturdays, I used to bring the boys to work with me to give my wife a break. And I've been downtown Jersey City for 17 years, so the boys grew up in the pizzeria, so they're very hands-on, washing dishes, helping my employees. So, you know, I can't go outside and play ball with them, so I throw them a little bit of dough, and I go over there and go play with it. And that's how it started, you know what I mean? And then they got really good at it, and I was just like, you know what, let me get some of this on film. Cool. And here we are, it's amazing.
You got to tell your old man, give me some other dough. Where's the money, Dad?
That comes next.
Listen, they worked me already. We're going to the store when we leave here, when the stores open up.
How much practice do you guys do to get to perfection?
Well, we practice like an hour and a half each day when like an event comes up for about a week, and like
Because you got to train, you got to be ready.
We practice a
right?
lot.
Do you want to own your own pizzeria one day or take over for your dad?
Yeah, I'm gonna take over my dad's restaurant.
I love that.
Soon.
All in the
Is this more fun than homework?
Yeah, definitely.
You spend more time on this or homework?
This.
Are you competitive? Which one of you guys is better? You're better.
All right, we're gonna give you like 15 seconds. Do a little quick face-off right here.
Right, show us who's better.
Come on.
Ready?
Oh, you're not. Oh, look at this.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh.
Wow.
Nick, what I say?
I
All else
love
fails.
it.